Kathy from Magnolia Heirlooms here. We are back and ready to stitch out our presents 1, 2, and 3. We're working from page 15, and I have hooked my lightweight mesh cutaway into my hook. We've already put our fusible backing on our background. I have my pieces that we need out of our kit. We need a wash away topping. We need the 4 9-inch pieces of ribbon that will go on at the very end. Our fabric for 5-inch square for the cup, and the background for our piece. And that's all we have to do. So I've got mine design loaded like we have already talked about, layered them on top of each other, because on this machine I have the add button that I can add different things on top. And remember to put your stuff in as the way you want it to stitch out. So the first thing that I put in was my crosshair, so we're going to stitch that out. And take just a second. We're trying a different camera holder this time. This is what we are eventually it's gonna look like. It's a cute little thing that you can, I believe this is day 5. You will have a dimensional tag that we will stitch a little bit later that we will stick on here. But you are able to put a candy cane or a little whatever you'll tie up into these ribbons. And these ribbons are embroidered onto it so that you can open them up and get to it while we're doing it. What I am going to do is, while I am let me lay this down here so I can do it easier. I'm going to put a piece of tape over all these ribbons until we get finished with our putting our quilt together, and then we can take them out, because I just don't want it to get caught up in any of the stitches that we're going to be doing. So when you get through with it, go ahead and just put some tape over it like this. That will keep everything tucked away until we get through with our quilt. All right. Now, if you look on the book, you're going to see that the stripes are oriented in this direction and not this direction. I don't know if it matters. If you prefer one way or another, I guess you could do that. But I'm going to put mine horizontal. So let's go ahead and stitch out the next placement line for our quilt batting. Couldn't think. And I'm still using up my scraps of quilt batting, so I'm not being super careful over how this is cut. I just want it to cover that stitch line that we just put down. And I should have a real pair of scissors here, not these snips. All right. So I'm going to put our batting down. We're going to stitch this really quickly. not the needle threader. Take my hook out and trim around, and I actually have a pair of embroidery scissors tonight so that I can, I located them. Remember not to cut your stitches if you can help it. On our Facebook page, we put up a welcome to all of you who may not know us, and there's a lot of people from different parts of the country that have joined us. If you would like to, we would love to know a little bit more about you. If you would say hey and give us whatever information you'd like to give us. We are located in Columbus, Mississippi. I'll get this one last side. And gee, those work so much better than my other scissors I was using. There we go. All right. Not that it really matters, but I think I was not allowing this to stitch this second line, which is the placement line for our background piece. So we're going to do that this time, do it correctly. Sure if you can see exactly like I want you to see. It's going to be a bit crooked. All right, now we're going to put down this and make sure all our lines are covered. And you can tape it if you'd like, or ours is stiff enough. I think we can just leave it. So we'll tack this one down. Now the next thing coming up is our embroidery, background embroidery. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to turn you off for a few minutes while it's embroidering, because you don't want to watch paint dry. So, here we go. Okay, it's done. So now we're going to do our tack down stitch. Oh no, we're going to do our ribbon placement stitches is next. So, and I'm going to let you watch these because it's so you understand what we're doing. This might be a good place to put a different color in your thread, in your top, so that you can see those tack down, those placement stitches. Since I've got all white, sometimes it's hard. All right, we are on number 1, where we have stitched the ribbon placement line. That's where you can see it. All right, we've just done number 1. We stitched our ribbon placement line, or we're in the process of. We're going to place our 4 ribbons ends 1/4 inch over the placement line. Ribbon should be extended off of each edge of the fabric, and place the tape completely covering the placement line. So we're going to, here's my placement line right here. And I know you can't see very well, but we are going to place a piece of tape over this line, and we're going to stitch over the tape. So don't worry, the tape will bring you in closer and let you see where that line is. Right there is my line, and I'm extending about 1/4 inch over that line into the center of the little gift, and I'm placing this tape over the top of that because it's going to stitch right over that tape. We just don't want those ends moving, and I'm going to do that on all 4 sides, and you just leave your ribbon draped over the end. I'm going to get this to all the sides. The tape is just to hold down that end so that it doesn't get caught up with the when it's stitching down everything. Now that we've got those taped down, we're going to number 2 says stitch the ribbon tack down line. So we're going to do that. Ooh. Well, I thought I could straighten it, and I messed it up. So I'm going to go back under there. And raise my foot back up. Okay. And wrinkle my tape. This is the greatest tape. It holds, yet it doesn't curl up on me. Make sure the ends of your ribbons are free and they'll get caught up underneath and get stitched down that way. Now we're going to take off the tape. I'm going to move the hook so you can see better what we're doing. So even though the tape has been stitched over, it just pulls right off, just like that. And you can see I already got the second hole in there. I've already used this once. So it's pretty good tape. Now what we're going to do, I'm going to make sure that these are not caught up in there. So when I'm putting it back in, I'm going to lay them in there, and then I'm going to drape them back over so they don't get stitched down the wrong way. Now we're going to take our piece of wash away topping, and we are going to put that over our stitches. And this again is kind of like the tape, or it is like the tape. We want to put it on here. It's going down so that your ribbons stay flat underneath your present. And then I'm just gonna tape the topping down, because I don't want it to, it's real thin and lightweight, so I don't want it to fly away on you and not serve its purpose. We've got all that down. Now we're going to do the tack down line for the base of the present. Now, it is called wash away, and you can take water and take it off. In this instance, we don't have anything really to wash off. We're just going to tear it off. So I'm going to take my tape back off. And I got a little piece of tape that got caught up in the seam there. And all you have to do is just pull it gently, and it comes right off. Your stitches kind of perforate the edges of it, and it all just comes tearing off. Put our hook back in, and we are going to put our present on, making sure that we are our little 5-inch square, making sure we're covering that tack down line all the way around. And here's where I would change colors. I've used my white all along on this, but I think I'm going to go to my green, in case anything happens to peek out from our embroidery, our satin stitch. I don't want it to be white instead of the green. Okay. Oh, I don't have my little lever down, and it constantly tells you, put your lever down. You can't sew without it. Now I'm going to take my hook out, or at least loose, and we're going to trim this fabric. And while you're trimming, be very careful you don't cut your ribbon. Got too far away. Trying to trim and keep my hands out of the way so that you can see or do any of the sewing so that you can still see what I'm doing. It's a little difficult. Make sure I don't cut that ribbon. Other side. And then I'm going to do the satin stitch around the present, and then I think we are finished after that for this one. But these don't take very long at all to do. They're very quick. We're coming right along with our little blocks. So, all right, I'm gonna start it up and turn you off and come back when we're done. Be right back. Okay, we have finished embroidering and we are done with it. All we have to do is take it out of the hoop and trim it up. And again, take some tape and tape all these pieces up in there like I have done on this one, so that they don't get caught up when you're trimming and sewing these blocks together. All right, next up, excuse me, we will be doing the cheer one. So let me get all that set up and I'll be right back. Okay, I am back and we're doing cheer one. Where's the half a cup of, and it leaves off the R because it goes on another block. And this is on page 27. We need our lightweight mesh cutaway that's hooped into our hoop. We need fusible backing, which we've already put on our background piece, and our background piece that we need. And it's the 10.5 by 8.5 piece. This is just embroidery, so this shouldn't take all that long. And we only make one of these blocks. This one is a little, look on your, if you're doing the block by block quilting, then we have to, after we quilt it, we have to shift our design up to where the end of the E is at 1/2 inch from the edge of the fabric, from the cut line of the fabric. And that's so that when we sew the R onto the end of this word, then it looks like it actually is one whole word. What I did on my, when I brought it into my machine, I put it dead center, just like we've been doing, both things on top of each other and both in the center. And then I made this grid line in the back of my, behind my, on my, where you see the image. And it's a 1-inch grid line. So I just, as carefully as I can, I've measured from the end of the E to the end of this line up here, guessing as good as I can. I've got that much of the E showing, and the background design showing on each side, kind of like they have in the book. So we're hoping for the best here. I think I've got it centered right. but this is the only tricky part of this particular one. So I've gotten all my threads lined up. Those I'm not using, but these are the ones that I'm using. And I have my white already in the machine. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch this. The first, it's the placement line for my batting. So here we go. I once again had to go to a little bit larger hoop because I'm doing the block by block method, and the background quilting is a little bit bigger than my 6x10 hoop. So I'm not sure. Kim says that it will fit, but maybe I don't know what I'm doing, and if you know what I'm doing wrong, let me know in the comments. But this is how I know how to do it. So ooh, got that close. I never can do this in the hoop. I have to take it out. I mean, in the machine. Ooh. Wonder why we are squeaking so. I don't know. I know you might not can see what I'm doing. I'm just trimming away my batting. It's going to be a big block. can put my fabric back on. Oh. Yes. Okay, now we're going to do our background quilting, so I'm going to get it started and then I'll come right back. Okay, I am going to check myself to be sure that I've got this E a half an inch from there. On my, I don't know if you can see it, there is a piece of tape right here. And I'm going to advance through my designs, and I'm going to keep an eye here, and it's going to tell me when I get, I'm going backwards. I want to go to that last E. And see, trying to see if you can see where my mark is. All right, my tape is, whoop, right here, and that's right at where my needle is. So I'm good on the placement of that. So we are going to go, of course I'm going to scroll back through and get back to where I was. Oop. We were getting ready to embroider this. I'm going to change my thread, and I'm going to go through all of my embroidery there. I'm not going to video that part of it and make the video so long if I show you every little stitch that's put in. I just want to give you enough of how to problem solve like this. I wasn't exactly sure that I had gotten in the right place, so it's always good. You can scroll back and forth on most any brand of machine that you have. There's a way in the embroidery to do that. So I am going to do my embroidery, and I will come back when we're at the end of it. See you in just a bit. Okay, we're finished embroidering. Let's pull it out and look at it. Isn't that cute? Oh my goodness. Now, this one has some special instructions, and you'll find them on trimming instructions here in the book. And again, we're on 27. It says to square the finished block to 8.5 by 6.5 with the design centered vertically this way, but 1/2 inch from the right inner edge of the ruler. So we are a 1/2 inch here. We're good. I think we've got it. The R will be on the next block beside it, but it will be in a different section. So when you trim this one, don't, and when we get to that one, we're going to put our section together. We have one more, our filler blocks that we have to do our embroidery on, or our background quilting on, and we will do that. That's the next one that's coming up, and then we'll have our section 1 done, and we'll go ahead and sew it together so we don't lose any of the little pieces. So I will gather all that together and set that up and see you in just a minute. Kathy from Magnolia Heirlooms. I'm back with our last section of our last part of section 1. We're going to look on our filler blocks, and we're on page 61. We're looking, if you look at where it says section 1 filler blocks, we have all these little pieces that we cut for our filler blocks, and they have them numbered here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And down here it's telling you which designs that we're going to put in these filler blocks. We're going to put them in to our hoop just like we have with our rest of our background fabric and quilt it, but that's all we'll do to it. And when we get finished, we will go ahead and sew all these pieces together. So we'll have section 1 finished. What I have done is I've taken number 1, I've gone to my sewing machine and I've sewn 1/4 inch and sewn all these little pieces together in a strip. I have, and I've also done that for the other strips, and you just do 1/4 inch. And I think this one is pieced also. There are 2 that aren't pieced, and we'll just put those in and quilt them as they are. We're going to do all the quilting on these before we sew them all together because everything has to be quilted. Sorry about that. All right, we're going to look on number 1. We're up here on number 1. Our it tells you which of your background quilting, if you're doing this. If you're not, you'll just go ahead and sew it together and then do your quilting later. Excuse me. But I'm doing the background quilting, so I'm looking for the tree, the 097 tree in the background quilting files. I want the 2x8 vertical design. So I have pulled that up on my screen, and the only way I know to get this centered, or the easiest way I know to get this centered, is just to put it in the center of the hoop and put it in that way and just continue. I know that's a little more of the stabilizer that we'll be using, but for me, it's the easiest way to do it without getting off center, which is very easy to do. You can follow the colors that they have here if you want to do your background quilting in different colors. I'm still going to stick with my white just because I like things to be all uniform. Do what you want on that. So I'm going to thread my white thread. And I should have already had this done. And I'm going to It tells me to change to a larger frame. And I know this will fit in it. So I'm not sure. No, it won't, because I've got to go outside the edges of it. So, hang on just a second and let me change out to a different frame. Okay, we almost have our section 1 finished so that we can sew all the pieces together. The last thing to do is the filler blocks. If you'll look on page 61, we have our filler blocks are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we are going to embroider on these, put our quilt batting behind it. We're going to do our background quilting and then trim them as we've done our other pieces of our blocks. So I've taken my pieces that need to be stitched together and I've sewn them on the sewing machine with a 1/4 inch seam and stitched them together. We'll put this together as a unit in our frame and embroider like we've done the rest. We will put our batting down, do our background quilting, but that's all we'll do for these blocks. So the first thing, we're going to hook our stabilizer in our hook. Put it in our frame, our machine. I have pulled up the pieces that go in the hoop. That goes on this one. And I'm going to embroider that, do our tack down stitches, do all the things we normally do. So I've got my white thread in. I will be quilting everything white because I like all my background colors to be the same. My background stitches. You can follow these colors that they have for each section up here. If you want to do that, do it however you would like to do it. So, hang on and we'll stitch this out. Let me get a piece of batting. And I'm just cutting off scraps off. Okay, I've stitched and trimmed around my batting. Now I'm ready to put down my block. So I'm going to lay this down. And I'm going to put a little bit of tape, but do not let the tape get into your stitching area. If it catches on just the very outside, it will be okay, but it's hard to get out if you let it get in where your background quilting is. So, this is really close to the edge, so that's why they tell you to tape it down. Okay. We're going to do our embroidery now. Background quilting, excuse me. Okay, we're finished with that. So we're going to keep on finishing these up, and then I'll come back and I'll show you how we're going to put together the filler, the whole section, how we're going to sew it together, and we'll be done with section 1, and we'll put it aside and start on section 2 in the next set of videos. Here we are at the final hurrah for section 1. I've got all my pieces sewn. I've got everything trimmed up. We're ready to stitch it all together so we can have section 1 completed. We don't have to think about it again till we start to sew all the sections together. We're going to look over on page 63, and it's going to give me the directions here of how to sew, the order in which you should sew them together. So the first thing it's going to tell me is to, number 1, sew the 2 filler blocks together, sew filler blocks to the seam block. Now, I may have misunderstood the directions, but I sewed these 2 blocks together before I stitched them. So I sewed these 2, these are already, for me, already sewn together. Now I'm going to sew this one to this one. And the way we do that is we're going to take the seam, lay it on top, and I'm going to bring you over to my sewing machine. Hope I'm not making you dizzy. I'm sewing on the Baby Lock Accomplish. Try to get it to where you can see what I'm doing. And what I want to do is to match up these 2 seam lines as best I can. And I'm going to follow this seam line. See if I can get you a little closer in. And I'm going to follow this seam line right here. So I hold the tails of my thread because I don't want any knotted up thread behind there. Now there are some who use a walking foot. If you want to do that, then go right ahead. I think this Accomplish will power through this without a walking foot. So your awl is your, or stiletto, or whatever you want to call it. Get your favorite one. And because that's what holds everything together really nicely. And I'm going to hold my finger on my threads. Now I'm going to back stitch these a little bit just so I know that they're going to stay together. I'm going to take my time, make sure everything's together and it looks nice. Now, since I hold my threads, and I do this instead of leader enders, I will cut these off. And let's see how well I did. A little bit is showing. I don't know that I'm going to go back and restitch that. I might if it bothers me to take that part out. Now what I'm going to do is to open this up, and we're going to steam our seam open and flat. I'll tell you, since it looks like all of this didn't come all the way there, I might just take a little bit bigger bite about halfway in. I'm going to go just a thread over that and see if I can't cover up and give it a little bit more stability. Oh, it looks much better. Okay, so I'm going to open all this up, and we're going to go over here to my iron, and I have a wool mat. Wait my iron up, and I do have steam going. I'm just going to lay my iron on there, hold it down, put a shot of steam through it. And I have a nice flat. Now don't iron over the top of this because that mylar will melt. If you need to iron over it, make sure your iron doesn't touch it. Put a press cloth over it. But my seam is nice and flat. Now the next thing it tells me to do is to sew this unit to my snowflake. And remember, I told you that this would be the up and down. You don't want to sew it, this way. We want to keep it going straight up and down. So we're going to put these two together. Let's go back to the sewing machine. And I'm not going to move you every time. Just make sure we're the same. Okay. Now, I'm going to take my stiletto to hold it down. Holding my thread tails. It may take you a minute if you're used to a cutter, not to use it if you're going to do this method that I'm doing. And we've sewn it nicely together. And I'm going to step back over and iron it open. And this is a by Annie's stiletto. I like it because it has the seam roller, seam presser on the end, and it's sharp, and I can put a nice sharp crease in that, which helps me when I go to the iron. I don't have to work so hard with my iron. Press this back. And there's what we have on the back side, nice and flat. Now the next thing it says to do is sew the 4 filler blocks together, which, like I said, I did it ahead of time, which apparently I didn't read directions correctly. And then we want to sew to the top of the have a cup cheer of this one. Now I did not get quite as much, and if I had done it by directions, I might not have had this issue. But so I think, I'm not sure how you were supposed to do this. I could not find the directions. If you do, then leave me a message in the comments. This is how I did it. I still have enough to catch in my seam right here on this block. So we're gonna hope for the best here. If not, we got a good old seam ripper over here. And not afraid to use it. Okay, so we're holding those down. I think I'm going to sew from this other side. Okay, there we go. And I can keep checking to be sure our lines are straight. And I'm talking about this line and this line right here. We have our trees going up. We have a good seam. We go press it. And instead of making you watch me sew every little thing together, you're just going to follow these directions here. Once you have sewn these pieces together, these pieces together, these two together, and then this one to this one, and the same up here, then you will wind up putting your 2 halves together like this, and we will be done with the first section. See you next time. On the 20th, I believe, is when the next video's set to come out. And I'll see you then. Thanks. Bye-bye.